Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 4th of May of 2026. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, but this video will start with the city of Moscow, the capital of the Russian Federation. During the previous 24 hours, the president of Ukraine made lots of weird statements. He said that Russia has announced a May 9th parade in Moscow without military equipment. And if that happens, it will be the first time in many years. They cannot afford military equipment and they fear drones may burst over Red Square. This is telling it shows they are not strong now. Another important statement: Ukrainian drones may arrive at the May 9th parade in Moscow. So as we can see, the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, threatens the Russians that on the 9th of May, the Ukrainian drones can attack the territory of Moscow, the capital of the Russian Federation. And during the previous 24 hours, we received lots of updates that the Ukrainians have already begun attacking the territory of the Russian Federation, especially in the direction of the capital of Russia, the city of Moscow. So, for example, this is the arrows, the approximate routes of Ukraine attack that took place yesterday in the evening of the 3rd of May of 2026, somewhere during the night, even during the nights between the 2nd and the 3rd of May. And these are the first waves in the direction of the capital of the Russian Federation. The Ukrainians stated that during that attack, the Ukrainians used around 250 drones, and as you can see, the biggest number of arrows are moving in the direction of capital. During the 4th of May, we received two more pictures, two more maps. This is the first one. This is the evening of the 3rd of May, somewhere around at 11 p.m. As for this picture, we see that most of the drones were flying in the direction of the central of Russia, and during that attack, the Ukrainians used 240 drones, but during this attack, several drones reached the city of Moscow, and we have this video that we have already discussed. In this video, we can see debris of a drone that was attacking the capital of the Russian Federation, the city of Moscow. And this evening, on the 4th of May of 2026, pro-Ukrainian sources published additional map. Here we can see the situation approximately at 7 p.m. of the Russian time, of the Moscow time. And here we can see hundreds of drones flying in the direction of the capital of the Russian Federation. And according to this update, the Ukrainians use approximately 220 drones. And right before we started making this video, we had started receiving updates that first drones that were launched by Ukrainians had approached the city of Moscow, and now the Russians are trying to destroy these drones with helicopters, with mobile fire groups, and so on. So, of course, today is not the 9th of May of 2026, but we need to understand one important thing. If Zelensky did decide to attack the city of Moscow during the 9th of May, if Zelensky decided to attack the Red Square, and if Zelensky decided to attack parade on the territory of the city of Moscow, of course it's impossible to complete just within one wave of attack. We need to understand that the city of Moscow is the most fortified, the most defended city through the entire territory of the Russian Federation. We have dozens of air defense systems, radars. Almost the entire Russia works just to protect the city of Moscow and not to allow even a single drone to approach the capital of the Russian Federation. So that is why if Zelensky decided to attack the city of Moscow, he needs to attack the Ukraine. Of course, the Ukrainians, Ukraine itself as a state, needs to attack the city of Moscow probably 4, 5, or even 6 days in a row, just with one purpose: to overload the Russian air defense forces, to force the Russians to use as many as possible missiles, as many as possible fire mobile groups, and so on. So that is why we believe that during the next days, between the 4th of May of 2026 and the 9th of May of 2026, the Ukrainians will use not even hundreds, but maybe even thousands of drones with the purpose to attack the territory of the Russian Federation in the direction of Moscow, Moscow. We will see lots of updates on this matter. The Ukrainians will try to not just to attack. The main purpose is not attacks. The main purpose is a corridor between the northeastern part of Ukraine, between the northeastern part of Chernigov region and Sumy region and the city of Moscow. So the Ukrainians, if they want to attack the city of Moscow during the 9th of May, and if they want to show some results to the Ukrainian European partners or something like this, they need to maintain this corridor for the next 4 or 5 days. They need to overload the Russian air defense forces, and only if this happens, only then the Ukrainians will be able to attack Russia. The Russians understand this, so which means that most likely in coming days we'll receive lots of updates that the Russians would redeploy additional air defense systems and air defense forces in the direction of the city of Moscow with the purpose just to strengthen its air defense lines and the layered defense. And this is another trap and another big problem that the Russians may face. The Ukrainians during the next days will continue their attacks in the direction of Moscow, but nobody can be 400% sure that during the 9th of May the Ukrainians will attack the city of Moscow. The Ukrainians may force the Russians to bring as many as possible air defense systems in the direction of the capital of the Russian Federation, but during the 9th of May the Ukrainians may attack any other city. The Ukrainians may attack the city of St. Petersburg and let's say another city with port infrastructure. The Ukrainians may attack the city of Rostov-on-Don. The Ukrainians may attack the settlement of Volgograd. So there are lots of towns and cities through the territory of the Russian Federation that could be attacked by the Ukrainians during the 9th of May. And due to the fact that the Russians are right now redeploying their air defense forces in the direction of capital, some towns, cities, or strategic positions or strategic industrial zones of the Russian Federation may be completely unprotected. So this is the most important thing, and it seems that this is exactly that the Ukrainians are trying to create. They want to force the Russians to reinforce their positions around the city of Moscow and to make several cities completely unprotected. So we'll see, of course, how the things are going to develop, but one thing is clear: if Ukrainians indeed attack the territory of the Russian Federation during the 9th of May, obviously the Russians will strike back, and the Russian retaliatory strike could be much more powerful in comparison with the Ukrainian one. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in Ukraine. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians attacked Ukraine with hundreds of drones. The pro-Ukrainian sources counted 155 drones that were involved during the massive attack. Lots of explosions were recorded around the city of Kharkiv. This time the Russians were attacking the settlement of Miriafa, and we have lots of videos from this area. For example, in this video we can see the consequences of attack: black smoke, several vehicles were damaged. In this video we can see a fire over the industrial zone and over the oil base. And in this video we can see exactly the moment when the Russians attacked the settlement of Miriafa with, it seems like, Iskander missile. So a very heavy explosion, and immediately lots of vehicles were damaged or even destroyed. As for the settlement of Miriafa, once again there is an oil base in this area, and the Russians, as we discussed during the previous videos, are completely concentrated along the Kharkiv, Sumy and Chernigov regions, first of all trying to destroy gas stations, oil bases, and many other different objects and facilities of energy and fuel infrastructure. And the Russians are doing this just with one purpose, because they understand if the Ukrainians are going to use drones, they're going to need fuel for these drones. So that is why if the Russians destroy fuel bases and fuel facilities along the border, then most likely the Russians believe the Ukrainians will not be able to use many drones to attack deep inside of the territory of the Russian Federation. So it seems that this is the tactics that the Russians are using. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground. We have lots of very important changes, and first let's talk about the Sumy direction. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians improved their positions significantly, especially to the southeast of the settlement of Sumy. So these are the changes on the ground between the dates. This is the end of the 3rd of May and this is the end of the 4th of May. The Russians shortened their position, shortened the distance towards the settlement of Krasnopolye from the east, and currently the distance between the the edge positions of the armed force of the Russian Federation in this area, and the first buildings in the city of Krasnopolye is already less than 2 kilometers, which means that it's just a battle of 2 or 3 days before Russians are able to answer the eastern outskirts of the settlement of Krasnopolye. A bit further in the southern direction to the south, we have significant changes to the settlement of Ryasne, and these are the changes on the ground that were provided by pro-Ukrainian sources. They have expanded the infiltration zone, and according to this update, currently the clashes are taking place in the central part of the settlement, and the Russian units were recorded in this area. Telling the truth, right before we started making this video, we had received an update with the geolocations of Russians on the territory of these farms and along this road. So tomorrow, before the next video, most likely we will adjust the map like this. We will color the territory between the settlement of Taraturutina and Grabovsk and the complete Russian control, and we believe that in a day or in 2 days, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation as well as the group of forces north will confirm Russian control, complete control over this territory. So it seems that in coming days, the settlement of Ryasne will fall. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Sumy and in the Leman, Slaviansk and Constantinovka directions. During the previous 24 hours, we received probably the biggest, the most important and the biggest updates exactly from this area. And first, let's talk about the northern flank. We have significant changes on the ground, and these are the changes between the dates. This is the end of the 2nd of May of 2026. This is the end of the 3rd of May, and this is the end of the 4th of May. The most important thing is that the Russians first of all managed to improve their position significantly, as you can see, and the second important thing is that the Russians crossed the river of Seversky Donetsk, and currently the Russians have strong positions on the territory of Kostyantynivka, and the Russians have strong control over the eastern part of the settlement of Prishep, and both these villages are located on the Ukrainian side of the river of Seversky Donetsk. Once again, these are the changes. Yesterday we adjusted the map through the eastern part of Prishep based on the video published by pro-Ukrainian sources, where we can see how four soldiers of the armed force of the Russian Federation, after they crossed the river of Seversky Donetsk, answered the eastern part of Prishep, and then the Ukrainians were bombing and attacking their positions right exactly through these buildings. Today we received another video, and this time we have something similar. Here we have once again a sabotage and reconnaissance group of the armed force of the Russian Federation that's answered the eastern part of Tyanovka, and then the Ukrainians were bombing these buildings. So based on these videos and based on the reports that were published by different very reliable pro-Russian sources, we came to the conclusion that the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to cross the river of Seversky Donetsk between the cities of Leman and Svetogorsk, and now the Russians are trying to take on the complete control these two villages and this dense network of the fortifications. And this is a very, very bad signal for defenders of the armed forces of the city of Sloviansk, because if Russians continue offensive operation on the Ukrainian bank of the river of Seversky Donetsk, the Russians would be able to take under complete control, of course, first of all the villages of Tyanovka and Prishep, then the village of Svetogorsk, then the settlement of Bogorodichne, and then the settlement of Sidorova, and probably even the settlement of Mayaki. And from these positions, from this foothold on the Ukrainian side of the river of Seversky Donetsk, and with this big forest in the middle, the Russians would be able to attack the settlement of Slaviansk from behind. The Russians would be able to cut the main logistic lines. We are talking about the road MO3 between the city of Slaviansk and the city of Kharkiv, and this could be something very, very bad for defenders of the city of Slaviansk and for the entire Slaviansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration, because now the Russians prepare a foothold right behind the main defense positions of the armed forces of Ukraine. And as we can see from the Ukrainian side, they're not doing anything with the purpose to stabilize the situation. At least we haven't received anything that can confirm this. Furthermore, the Russians improved their positions to the south of the city of Leman. These are the changes on the ground between the dates. Several pro-Ukrainian sources and neutral mappers stated that the Ukrainians began a counter-offensive operation in this area, but without proofs. As for Russian sources, they reported about offensive operation to the south of Leman, and we have proofs that the Russians improved their positions through these facilities. The Russians have captured these buildings, and the Ukrainians were attacking them with FPV drones. The settlement of Alexandrovka. During the previous 24 hours, we received the video where we can see how Ukrainians were attacking Russian soldiers that were moving through these tree lines. In this video, we can see a Russian soldier moving along this tree line. It seems that he was moving in the direction of the eastern parts of the settlement of Alexandrovka, but a Russian soldier, this Russian soldier was ambushed right exactly at this point and was attacked by the Ukrainian drone. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map, and it seems that the Russians have better control through the settlement of Alexandrovka than you can see through the map of any mapper that follow the situation in the Ukraine. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the city of Constantinovka. Today the map has been adjusted once again. These are the changes on the ground between the dates. Almost every single day we adjust the map and we color more and more parts, more and more blocks of the city of Constantinovka and the complete Russian control. And as of the end of the 4th of May of 2026, we can say that the Russians have captured more than 28% of the city of Constantinovka, and that the Russians continue advancing, and that as of the end of the 4th of May of 2026, the Ukrainians are not able to do anything to stabilize the situation. So today we had reports that the Russians captured completely the western flank of the settlement of Constantinovka, and currently everything below the lake of Stavok and the settlement of Ilinovka and Berestok is already under complete Russian control. So which means that the settlement of Dovga-Balka was completely cut from supplying support from the city of Constantinovka. In coming days, the Russians will continue offensive operation forward in the northern direction, both on the left and the right sides of this small lake and water reservoir of the first Stavok. And from these positions, the Russians will try to get as close as possible to the most northern parts of the settlement, with the purpose to establish complete fire control over the territory, with the purpose to encircle the Ukrainians through the central and the southwestern parts of the city. If Russians during the next days are able to take under complete control, let's say, these territories of the city of Constantinovka, this is going to be a complete and total encirclement of the Ukrainians in this part of the city, without any chances for evacuation. The Ukrainians will not be able to cross the river of Krivoy Tarets from the south in the northern direction due to complete FPV drone control over the territory. So it seems that the battle for the southwestern and the western parts of the city of Constantinovka are coming to an end. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the area of the Dobropolye. The Russians began outflanking the settlement of Bilitzka. There are still Ukrainian positions in this area. The Russians, despite hundreds of attempts to take on the complete control, haven't managed to do this. And due to logistics that still exist, so that is why the Russians, according to different pro-Russian sources, during the previous 24 hours took on the complete control the Bilitzka mine facility to the north of the settlement of Bilitzka, and it seems that from these positions the Russians will continue offensive operation further in the southwestern direction with the purpose to take on the complete control of the Bilitzka mine itself. If Ukrainians lose control over the Bilitzka mine, then most likely the Ukrainians would be forced to fall back from the settlement of Bilitzka in the western direction. Otherwise, the Ukrainians would be cut in cordon and encircled completely without any chances for this. If Ukrainians lose control over the city of Bilitzka and the Bilitzka mine, then we can start talking about the beginning of the battle for the city of Dobropolye itself. As for the Zaporizhzhia direction, during the previous 24 hours, lots of changes were recorded, but this time and these days we have changes almost only in the Ukrainian favor, or we color the territories under Russian control as territories covered with the fog of war, or the territories with Ukrainian sabotage and reconnaissance groups infiltrated. So we have updates that the Ukrainians infiltrated the territories between the settlements of Novonikolaievka and Kalinovska, as of now without proofs. We have reports that Ukrainians infiltrated in the area between the settlements of Dobropolye and Uspenovka, between the river of Gaichur and the river of Gaichul, trying to probably continue their offensive operation with the purpose to cut and to encircle the Russians in the area of Tirnovate. And we have reports that the Ukrainians improved their positions through the western flank of the city of Zaporizhzhia. So it seems that it is not just another counter-offensive operation that we could see through the January and the February of 2026. It seems that this is something like a major Ukrainian counter-offensive operation with the purpose to improve significantly positions of the armed forces of Ukraine through the entire Zaporizhzhia region, and with the purpose to force the Russians to fall back as far as possible in the southern direction. The Russians are showing significant resistance. There are very heavy clashes through the entire territory, but the most important thing that we haven't received anything about additional changes on the ground for a very long period of time. Of course, there are still very heavy clashes through the settlements of Gulyai Polska, Verkhnya Tersa, and maybe in coming days we should expect additional changes on the ground and announcements from the Russian side that most likely will take place before the 9th of May. And we believe that before the 9th of May, we will receive lots of updates on the ground published by pro-Russian sources, lots of videos with Russian flags established through the entire line of combat contact. But as of now, the Russians are trying to keep everything in a secret, but with the purpose probably not to create a very dangerous situation before the 9th of May. We have covered most of the updates regarding the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, and just a few words about the conflict on the territory of the Middle East. It seems that the second round of clashes is about to start. Yesterday in the evening, right before oil markets opened, the President of the United States of America announced the beginning of Project Freedom operation. And according to this operation, the United States of America were planning to escort neutral countries' ships out of the Strait of Hormuz, calling it a humanitarian effort. But the Iranian side said that nobody is allowed to cross the Strait of Hormuz without the permission from the Iranian side. And during the day, we received lots of updates on this matter. The sources stated that the Iranians hit a South Korean linked ship in the Strait of Hormuz. We had reports that the US flagged merchant ships successfully passed through the Strait of Hormuz and are continuing their journey according to the Central Command of the United States of America. We had reports that several military ships of the United States of America were hit with missiles or drones from the Iranian side. So many updates, and it was very difficult to understand what was right and what was speculation or not the correct situation. But it seems that despite the thing that as of now it's very difficult to understand what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz, we received a report that the Iranian side during this evening attacked the United Arab Emirates for the first time since ceasefire was announced, and the Iranian side attacked some object of energy infrastructure, some port infrastructure. We had reports from the United States of America, from the US Central Command, that several fast boats were destroyed by the United States of America. Furthermore, we had a report that the United States of America announced that any ship that will threaten the Persian Gulf and the Freedom Operation, Project Freedom, can be attacked by the US forces, and many other different things. And different sources and the military experts stated that most likely within the next 24 hours, the United States of America and the coalition will once again attack the state of Iran, and even there are very high chances that the coalition will use the hypersonic missiles. And of course, all these things are doing just one thing with oil prices. Oil prices are going higher and higher. So first, when the Iranians said that nobody is allowed to cross the Strait of Hormuz, after the President of the United States of America announced the Operation Project Freedom, oil prices rose for 2%. And later, when we start receiving updates that the Iranians attacked military ships of the United States of America and that several tankers were hit by the Iranian side, oil prices rose for $2 more. And as of the moment when I started making this video, oil prices were on the level of $106 for WTI per barrel. And it seems that oil prices will continue growing after reports about attacks on the infrastructure of the United Arab Emirates, and it seems that we are returning back to the situation, to back at the beginning of the conflict between Iran and the coalition. And that's it for today. The Military Summary channel reminds us to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching, subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.